Good morning. Today for Apes, we're on a field trip. I'm on a morning run with Spike. I'll show you him in a second. And we're at the Poudre River, right by where the bike trail meets Wood Street. Maintaining social distancing, and as you can see, I've got my mask. So I'm going to show you the cross-section of the Poudre River. For those of you not from Fort Collins, this is what happens when your community can't speak French and your river is named for the French word for powder. So, as you can tell by looking at the river, it's not moving very fast. We're still in the early part of spring. In the next few weeks, as the snowpack in the mountains warms up, this river is going to get significantly higher. We're going to talk more about the floodplain than anything. One important thing you know with river safety is if the river is moving faster than walking speed, it is not safe to walk in it. Those rocks that you can see can roll over and pin your foot down, and then there's not much people can do to save you. So be very careful when you're near moving water. So there's Spike, and if you look right here, this mud line on the street tells you the height of the last flood of the river. So this would have been from last May. Alright, so here we are looking upstream. If you look on the left side of the river, you'll see it's got a steeper bank. That's also the outside of the curve. The outside curve of a river is where the water tends to move faster and you have more pronounced erosion. Sorry, my dog just pulled the camera. On the right side, you'll see that it's a lot shallower. The inside curve of a river tends to have slower moving water and you see less erosion. Alright, so to give you an idea of the floodplain, if you look over there, so I'm just about 100 feet away from the riverbank right now on the bike trail. As you can see, once you're in the floodplain, land becomes really good for agriculture. Reason for that is whenever the river floods, as it crosses over its banks, the water slows down and it drops lots of sediment and silt, which is rich in nutrients. So when you're in the floodplain, you have really good rich soil. One trade-off is your higher risk for flood. So now I'm right where Wood Street meets the river trail, and I'm going to go up to show you the full size of the floodplain. It's going to be about a 1 mile journey. Don't worry, I will edit. So here I'm at where Hart's Garden meets Wood Street. We're about 200 feet from the water, and believe it or not, we're still in the floodplain. We're going to keep going up Wood Street that way, and I'll show you the next floodplain mark. So here we are a few more blocks from the river, and here's a cool feature that the city's added. This is a pond to collect stormwater and let it slowly soak into the ground to recharge groundwater and decrease flooding from too much surface runoff. Fort Collins started to do flood mitigation after the 1997 Spring Creek floods. Alright, so I'm now at the corner of where Vine meets Wood Street. And if you look off to my left, you'll see it drops down into the lower floodplain. Up to right where that crosswalk sign is, you'll see that that area is pretty close to the river. It's within a quarter mile of the river, and that is the part of the floodplain that floods more often. As we keep moving south on Oak Street, or towards Oak Street on Wood, we're going to eventually reach the top of the floodplain. But this whole area here where it's flattened out is also at risk of flooding. During the Spring Creek floods, Fort Collins found out that our city can get 6 inches of rain in 1 hour, and it led to catastrophic flooding. The reason the flooding was so problematic is if you look at these parking lots in this concrete and asphalt, we have a lot of impermeable surfaces. All of those increase the risk of flooding. I'm now at the corner of Wood and Elm Street. This storm drain's about 3 feet across at the base. If you look, it actually pours out to a flat, low area that's designed to slow down the water and let it soak into the ground. You can see more concrete drainage that way. This area is a rain garden, even though there's no flowers, and its goal is to recharge groundwater and decrease flooding. Okay, I'm now at the corner of Sycamore and Wood Street. I'm about a half mile from the river. And here you can see another leveling off. This would be another floodplain. Some textbooks call that first one I showed you the 100-year floodplain. This might be the edge of the 200-year floodplain. That's not a good system because that leads to people thinking that it'll only flood once every 200 years. What 200-year floodplain means is there's a 100% chance it'll flood in 200 years. So it's not like a Gregorian calendar. Here's one, so I'm now at the corner of Sycamore and Wood Street. This is another storm runoff system. Since '97, Fort Collins has done this all over, realizing the sheer size of our floodplain. One thing a lot of cities do is they try to dump all the stormwater into the river. It fixes some problems, but it causes depletion of groundwater, and it also increases flooding of downstream areas. Okay, I'm now in the corner of Wood Street and Maple. Right around here, the ground level's off again. This is still part of the floodplain, but this is a transition to the lower risk floodplain at this point. Okay, I'm now at the corner of Oak and the Port. I'm still in the floodplain, but now it's a very low risk floodplain. Okay, so that was your tour of the floodplain. I'm now at the corner of Oak and Washington, and we're officially out of the historic floodplain. Because of city planning, they've put in enough storm drains where if you look at maps of the city now, you'll see that a lot of those areas don't flood as often because of all the abatement they've done. The big mistake students make on FRQs is they often say to deal with flooding in floodplains, they should move everybody out of the floodplain. I just went through an entire mile of dense urban housing, and that would be incredibly costly to do. Going forward, it's smarter when cities don't build in floodplains. The original Fort Collins from 1850 was actually about 2 miles north of where it currently is. It got washed out in a flood in the 1850s, and they relocated it farther from the river, yet in a floodplain that was a lot bigger than they realized. So, that was your floodplain lesson, and have a great day.